I'm hoping that that worked. If I did everything right, hopefully you guys can hear me. Alright, thanks. Okay then. Alright, hi everyone. I'm Kelly. I'm one of the SoUCI board members. I'm here today to give you a little crash course, I guess, on how to do all the things for volunteering with Science Olympiad. If you're here, I'm sure, or it's more than likely that you already have some experience with Science Olympiad, either as a competitor or as a past volunteer that just wants to get more into it. I'm here today to kind of show you the ropes of everything. It'll be a little bit more geared towards someone who has never volunteered before, but hopefully everyone can get something out of it. Okay. Before I start going through everything, I just want to echo a few sentiments from some of the leadership within SoCal, specifically Peter sent some of us a message earlier today that was basically like, there's a lot of things going on. I'm sure you're all aware of the fires in SoCal. So prioritize yourself first. I hope everyone's doing okay. Taking care of your physical and mental health, and if at any point there's any concerns with the tournaments you're going to, you can just let someone know, and then if you want to back out for your own concern, then there's no one's holding that against you. That being said, I also know some people came here because of the upcoming USC Invitational. There's Brian was kind enough to send out some announcements regarding this stream for me for that. And I'm not part of USC's like planning team, so I can't necessarily answer certain questions regarding that tournament. So if you guys have any questions for USC, I will try my best to answer them, but I may not have all of the information. Okay. That being said, I think that's everything I wanted to do, so let's get started. Okay, so obviously, why do you volunteer? You can say, obviously, there's a few perks. The main one that I didn't write, because I hope that is in your mind already, is, you can support like the younger kids that are interested in learning about science, fostering their interests, getting them into the field. Personally, I got into my major, or I got interested in my major because of Science Olympiad, so it's something I kind of want to help pass on. But obviously there's a few other things that come with volunteering. So for every tournament at SoCal, you get free food all day. Pretty much all your meals are usually provided for you throughout the day. You get a free ride to the school that you're volunteering for. And you get free merch. You get a lanyard and a badge, and sometimes a shirt. I believe, well, at last year at USC, they gave us a shirt. I'm not sure if they will this year, but you will for sure get a lanyard with your name card on it. Let's see. So this next part is going to be a bit of terminology that's used within the volunteers and just within Science Olympiad in general. If you've been through Science Olympiad before, you probably already know some of this, so I'll go through it a little bit quickly. There's 3 divisions within Science Olympiad. Generally, most volunteers only work with Division B and C, which is middle and high school. There is a Division A for elementary school that I know at least SoUCI will occasionally work with through OCDE. but for the most part, our main focus is the middle and high school divisions. Within each of the divisions, there's a few different types of events. There's the build events, where participants will build something. They'll have a set of rules that they have to follow to build it within, and then they'll bring it to the competition and test it there. Study events, test events, these are kind of exactly what you sound like. They're your classic test format. Someone writes a test, the participants take the test, and then they get scored on how well they did. There's lab events too, where it might be comprised a little bit of both types of the other events, but generally it'll be like obviously a lab where they are doing some type of experiment. Like I know Chem Lab has done titrations in the past and other things like that. Sorry, I just... Okay. And so there's a few different types of tournaments that you can also go to. The USC Invitational is the upcoming one next week. Invitationals are more like, you could say, practice tournaments for the competitors. They're lower stakes, and they don't like... Doing well in them doesn't necessarily mean that they get to move on anywhere. It's just for fun, for practice, kind of like a scrimmage, I guess you could say. Regionals is the next level up from that. These are your qualifier rounds, basically. They're held for schools in and around a county or a region. So there's LA regionals. I believe this year they're actually hosting 2 regionals in LA. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that's what they said. There's OC regionals that's hosted here at UCI. There's a few other regional tournaments I think that I'm forgetting, but yeah, these are your qualifier rounds that bring and the top schools from these regional tournaments go on to these state tournaments. Generally about 3 to 6 teams per regional, or 3 to 6 schools I should say, per regional tournament go on to these states tournament. These are like your semifinals, and the top 1 school from the state tournament goes on to the national tournament. This is your final round of competition, and it's held for, like I said, the top school in every state. This year, nationals this year, I believe, is being held in Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken. And for the most part, most volunteers will generally be volunteering for these first 3 tournaments. Okay, so here's some terminology that volunteers will mainly be using. So impound is mostly for build events, and this is when the students will leave their device that they built with you before their event starts. So basically at the very beginning of the day, like probably around like 7 or 8 a.m., they'll come to the room or wherever the impound is and leave their device there along with anything else that they need to bring with them to the event. Usually it'll specify what needs to be impounded and what doesn't in the rules. And generally the sentiment for this is that they're not allowed to touch it until they come to when they come to test and compete. So you should note that impound is different than the actual time of the event, just because the impound is like to make sure that they don't modify their device after like seeing the track or anything else. Score counseling is a process where you verify all your scores with a score master. I'll go over what that is later. And you have to go through them individually because we have to make sure that every single score is correct to the best of our ability, because obviously placements matter, or scores matter for placements, and score counseling is just our process of verifying that everything is correct. There's also appeals, which don't happen like too often. I believe every tournament has had at least 1 or 2 appeals happen. But usually, so an appeal is when the team or the competitors think something went wrong with the event, either maybe like the event supervisor like read the rules wrong and did something wrong, managed it wrong, or just something something just wasn't right. So appeals are submitted by the coach or the team, and they are reviewed by the arbitration team, which is also something I'll get to later. For build events, a thing to note is that they usually have to indicate that they want to appeal before they leave, because they have to leave the device with you. And you have to make sure that the coach is the one that is submitting an appeal. It can't be a parent, it can't be someone that's not officially part of the team, because occasionally for build events, parents can come and watch and they may inquire about the rules, but you have to be aware that if anyone is going to officially inquire about the rules and how you handled the event, then it has to be a coach or a team member. Yeah, and decisions made about appeals by the arbitration team will be final. Okay, so here are some of the roles that you may be either at the upcoming tournaments or just sometime in your lifetime as a volunteer. For my purposes, I differentiate event supervisors and general volunteers. So event supervisors, they're usually the main person in charge of a specific event. They are the ones that make all the major decisions for that event for that day. And generally they have Science Olympiad experience. Maybe they're not, maybe like I've gone to some tournaments where they have like a professional like doctor or someone that's the ES. But generally it's someone that is both a past like competitor or like someone experienced with volunteering, and someone that is either a major or an expert in their field. General volunteers, on the other hand, are any volunteer that is running an event and they're not the event supervisor. So they'll be supporting the event supervisor in any way that is needed, whether it's helping grade or keeping time or anything else. These people may or may not have Science Olympiad experience. It's just this way to help organize like just like roles of who's in charge, who's not, and who needs to be making the important decisions of the day. Being a general volunteer doesn't mean you're any less important than an event supervisor, obviously. Both are very much needed in different capacities. And some tournaments, I believe, use slightly different terminology. I think one tournament I went to, they had like lead event supervisor and then just event supervisor, but it's the same idea no matter what. And for future reference, anytime I say ES, I mean event supervisor. Okay, and ESs and volunteers have a few common responsibilities. A big one is safety. So the way SoCal does most, if not all of their tournaments, is they give competitors wristbands, colored wristbands, and the color corresponds to what division they're in. So if they're in Division B, for example, they might have blue, and if they're in C, they might have yellow or something. You wanna, when they're coming in, you wanna check their wristbands, maybe even their team number if you have their a roster of who's coming at what time. And you want to make sure that the team coming in is coming in at the correct time and that it's the correct division. Another thing about safety is PPE for labs and builds. Generally in the rules they'll specify what type of equipment that they should be wearing, what type of goggles, lab coats, whatever. So you should make sure that they have these when they come in, and more often than not, you'll probably need some type of PPE as well, just because you will also be handling the chemicals or whatever else that they're competing with. And generally, you're just going to want to make sure that they don't hurt themselves, because, you know, kids they can be a little bit stupid. last year at, I think, LA regionals, there was a story of some kid who was doing can't judge a powder and decided, I know all of these great tests to determine what this unknown powder is. You know what I want to do? I want to lick it. So just be aware that anything can go wrong and just keep an eye on them, you know? Anyway, another thing that all volunteers and ESs need to do is being aware of grading and being fair in the competition. So obviously, you don't want anyone cheating, you don't want anyone tampering with anything, stuff like that. You're going to need to help grade test because definitely at the end there's going to be a rush of people trying to get things done in a hurry, and it's pretty stressful if there's not a few people helping grade possibly 50 or more tests by themselves. Generally, you shouldn't be interacting with coaches, and this is purely because you don't want to have any bias within you as a grader and the competitors, anything. We just don't want to have issues surrounding that, especially when it comes to appeals and whatever else. Yeah, I'll have more of the specifics on grading later. Okay, so some other roles of within volunteers are test writers and test reviewers. So test writers are exactly what they sound like. They write the test for a study event. They may or may not be the event supervisor. So, for example, I wrote a test I helped co-write a test for USC Invitational. I will be the ES for only one division. I wrote for both divisions, but I can only obviously be the ES for one division. Someone else will be the main person in charge of the other division. Usually a test writer is someone who either majors in a topic or is an expert in their field. So, I'm a public health major. I tend to write disease detectives tests, occasionally anatomy or something else. I've seen some, doctors write anatomy tests. Yeah, and I'll have more about this at the end of this presentation if you guys are interested in learning about test writing and getting into that. But another thing that you can do is be a test reviewer, and that's also exactly what it sounds like. You review the test written by the test writer. You're going to be checking for errors, plagiarism. Readability is a big one. You want to make sure that the test is hard enough for them to get a good gauge on how well they know their stuff, but you want it to be written in a way that you can grade them quickly, because there's going to be how many teams are there? 90 teams just in Div B, and you have to get the grading done by 5 or something. Maybe earlier than 5. So yeah, you want to make sure that you can make a test. You want to make sure that the test is written in a way that everything is manageable in the time that we have. So the test takers can take the test in the amount of time, the graders can finish grading in the amount of time they have. And you will obviously never review your own test, because obviously what's the point? Okay, I think this is the last of the roles I have. So there's the score master and arbitrators. So score master is what I was kind of saying earlier, where they're the main person or people that will be overseeing the scores for the tournament, making sure that all the scores come in on time and making sure that they're all correct. You will go to them for score counseling whenever you're done grading or scoring or whatever, and you'll finalize your scores with them. And then there's the arbitration team. They're going to be the ones that deal with all the rules clarifications and other potential issues that might arise throughout the day. These are the people that will make the decisions on appeals if if they do occur. And if you're unsure of something, like how to run something, something about the rules, you can message them. Often we use Discord. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe when USC sends out their final announcement and assignments and everything, that they'll send you a Discord link for the tournament. Or that's what happened last year, at least. Okay, so schedule. I flashed this up earlier, or a second ago, but sorry. So here's the schedule that they sent me. I'm not sure if this is still in the like drafting phase or if this is just how they're gonna send it to you guys, but so this is just the schedule for Div B. I want to note that for this tournament for USC, they are splitting up the awards for Div B and C, so what I imagine is going to happen is that after this awards ends, there's going to be another block over here that has the awards for Div C. But anyway, so on the side here obviously is all the events and their locations. So like I'm doing anatomy, I don't know which division, but I'll be in whatever building this is. They'll send you a map when they send out the full announcement. Registration is pretty important. This is registration both for the competitors and for us. So 7 a.m. please be at least ready to register or arriving at USC. Because we need to get everything sorted. Volunteers need to check in to get their test, their badge, everything else can get settled in. Because by 8 o'clock is when the first round of kids are going to come to you. And each block has about 15-ish teams, it looks like. So yeah, it looks like you're going to be basically going non-stop for the whole day. There's a little bit of time, if you notice, between each of the blocks. This is just for competitors to obviously move around, like it's your like passing period you would have in like school. This is also for you to to sit up and whatever. When will the schedule be sent out? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not on the USC team. I don't know the specifics. I believe they will try to send it out soon. I can't give you a specific time though. Sorry. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so another thing about check-in, make sure that you have your lanyard because that is your identification that you are not a competitor. You're gonna have to be wearing it the whole day, just so that we can make sure that we know who's who and everything. You might have heard me say blocks earlier. This is a block, basically a block of time where students compete. Most events are 50 minutes long, so we just allot an hour just to have everyone settle in and whatever. You also want to note down here that there's a few events that are sign up online. These events are when the competitors will sign up for like a 10-minute time slot to come. So your schedule is not as set as it is up here, but you usually get about 10 to 15 minutes for these build events. So you're gonna have to act pretty quickly. And also here you can see that there's impound for these events. I'm assuming the impound room is the same as the room that they're competing in. So just make note of that if you have an impound event, you may want to get there a little bit earlier just because competitors will start coming around to drop off their things by then. I think that was everything I wanted to say. Okay, setting up for builds. Let me Give me a second to transition. Okay. So build events are a little bit more complicated in their setup and everything, just because obviously you have to be ready. You have to be within the parameters of the event, or else you're gonna get a lot of appeals. So here. So this is for Scrambler B. This is one of the more simple setups that I can give you, and unfortunately I can't go through every single setup of every single event because that's way too much and they're all different. So if you are doing a build event, just like please read your rules. There's both divisions of the rules. It's not loading in, but there's both divisions of the rules. Make sure you know which division you're working with, which event you're doing. Try to read through a little bit of it. I know they're long, but at the very least, make sure that you are aware of how things are scored and how the competition is run. So the important part about setting up for a build event is looking at the track if you have a track. This is basically everything that you need to set up for the event. And you may also want to be looking at the construction parameters, because my advice to you is to like if there's like a set of dimensions that they need, then I would suggest just like marking out on the floor with tape like a box for how big it is. So let me this one? Okay. So basically, if you have your track, say, whatever dimensions you choose, what? Why isn't it working now? Well, whatever. And your track. You also might want to note for the track, sometimes there are things where you get to decide as the ES how long things are going to be. So I believe for Scrambler, yeah, so you get to decide a target distance at a start and an end point. And you get to decide anywhere between 7 and 10 meters. You also want to make sure that you know what type of competition you're going to, because that affects what type of interval you can set the distance to. So say if you're going to USC Invitational, you can make the interval in increments of 0.25 meters. So you could have a track that is exactly 7 meters long. You could have one that's 7.25, 7.5, all the way up to 10. For states, you can make it even smaller intervals at 0.1 meters, and nationals you can go down to 0.05 meters. I was going to show you how to set it up in 3D, but for some reason my Blender is not responding to me, so I will move on from that. So a big thing I want to emphasize about doing build events is that you have to move quickly. You have very little time with each of the teams, and you have a lot of things to look through. Like, these are all the parameters that you're looking for. So I know that looks like a lot, but what makes it easier is that you will be given a score sheet. This is basically everything that's in the rules that you need to look out for. You can just check true, false, whatever There's time for some events as well. I believe they will give you the physical score sheet at USC. If not, they will probably give you something that looks like this, which is just the score sheet but on a spreadsheet. Personally, I would say use the spreadsheet because it's a lot easier. Yeah, so I'll go through this a little bit more later, but you want to make sure that obviously you have everything set and that you can fulfill all the parameters here. And you need to kind of be aware of what the rules are to fill it out this way, obviously, because it's not quite as clear what you're looking for than if you were to have this. But this just expedites the process as long as you know kind of what you're doing. Anyway. Okay, so grading. This is a bit more geared towards study events and stuff like that, so grading. For grading and pacing. So to be on pace means that you're finishing grading all or most of the previous block's tests during the current block. So say you're in this second time block and you just finished having this first one. What you want to do by the end of this time, by 10:15, you want to have finished grading most or all the tests from this 8 to 9 block time period. If you're not like almost done, I would say if you're not almost done by then I would say please ask for help. There's going to be people that you can reach out to that will help you if you need the help, because obviously there's not a ton of time between the last block and the award ceremony. It looks like a lot of time, but like if you fall behind, it's quite hard to catch up because it obviously just keeps compounding on and on until you get here. I'm going to be one of your score masters actually for USC, so I'm hoping that you guys will be getting your scores in on time for the award ceremony, because it is quite the big rush of things to get done at the end of the day. So yeah, if you guys are not on pace, please ask for help. You're gonna want to start grading as soon as you can. Usually I would say just wait until the next block starts their test to start grading, just because you want to, like, there's a lot of things you got to check as they're coming in and just make sure that they're settled in and whatever. But as soon as they start their tests, you start grading the past tests. And another thing to expedite the process is to split up the work between all the volunteers. Unless you're doing an event where, say, like you need like a timer, or like a lab event where someone like really needs to be watching the kids at all time, I would say all volunteers should be helping with grading. And yeah, if you feel it's too much for just like however many people you have, then always reach out and ask for help. So consistency is another big thing, because you want obviously your test scores to be as accurate as possible. So to do this, I would say assign pages to grade. So basically, like, say you have like a 15-page test and you have 3 volunteers. Each volunteer can grade like 5 pages, and they grade the same 5 pages for every single test. This way it's a lot faster because everyone kind of gets into the groove of grading, and it's just way more efficient this way. Like just assembly line it and just do as much as you can in the amount of time you have. You also want to make sure that you're all kind of on the same page when you're grading. Don't let one person be like super lenient with answers and be like, they're close enough, you can get it, and another person be like, oh, they didn't get this exact answer, so no points for you. What do tests usually look like? So tests can be a bit of everything. Generally, it depends on the test writer, but like most writers, in my experience, will have a mix of a little bit of everything in their tests. Personally, like when I write tests, I always have multiple choice and short and long answer and calculations and everything. Just because that's how I think I can best test the students in my event. But it's going to be different for every event and every person. But yeah, like say for example, like you're an event where you have like 3 people that know the material really well, or like you have 2 of the test writers in the room with you, and then there's a third person that doesn't necessarily like know the material that well or didn't write the tests. That third person can be someone that's just purely focused on like grading the multiple choice sections that are like really easy and fast. And you guys should also be aware that you need to choose whether or not to grade in positives or negatives. I heard a story in the past where 2 people in the same event were grading differently, and by that I mean one person was assigning points as like, oh, you got this right, you get a plus, and then another person was assigning points as, you got this wrong, you get a minus. And when they finally got their test together, they were like, how do we count this? So make sure that whatever you're doing it, all the volunteers are doing it in the same way. Personally, I like doing it in positives just because it's a lot easier to just like add them up at the end, but whatever you decide, just stick with it and make sure everyone's doing it the same way. If you're ever unsure about an answer that someone put, especially like with Division B, the middle school division, they can get a little bit creative with their answers and can be a little bit like, I mean, I know you're young, but I don't know what you're saying. So if you have any questions about grading or a possible answer, then you should direct that to the event supervisor. Like I said, they're the person that is in charge of making the big decisions for the day, so they'll be the person to have the final say in valid answers, penalties, and anything else. Okay, and breaking ties. So tiebreaker questions are questions that are not necessarily built into the rules, and it's up to the test writer to include them into their tests. In the event that you run out of tiebreaker questions, I know it's happened a lot with anatomy and physiology tests, the ES can choose extra questions from the test to act as tiebreakers if needed. Tiebreaker points are then awarded in very small increments. Usually I suggest just doing like 0.1 points. This is purely because of the software that SoCal uses, called duosmium. I'll go into that a little bit later as well. So obviously they're not worth much, and they're only really used to indicate who won or lost a tie. The way I recommend doing tiebreakers is you just go down the line of the tiebreakers that the ES put. So this is a tournament that already happened, don't worry, I'm not leaking anything. So the ES will put the tiebreakers somewhere on their test and indicate the order that they want them to go in. This one is in like number order, but you can have one that goes like in a random order. It's just whatever they think is the order they want the tiebreakers to go in. So you go down the line and you'll just go like, did Team A get question 15 right? Did Team B get question 15 right? If they both got it right, then you move on to the next one. If one of them got 15 right and the other one got it wrong, then you award the tiebreaker points to the team that got it correct and don't give anything to the team that didn't. And then you've broken a tie. Oops. Okay. Okay, duosmium. Give me a second because I forgot to log into duosmium. Is there any other questions while I'm doing this? Sorry, my computer is not having a good time right now doing all of this at once. Sorry, it's being stupid. Okay. 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 So, in the actual tournament, I believe all this, like, on the left will be, put in already, but, so say you have, like, school ABC, and you're doing a study event, like anatomy and physiology. When you're done, like, grading, and you have the raw scores, like, written on their test, you can just go in and, like, put their scores in manually. That's from something else. And it'll automatically rank them for you based on the settings that you have. So obviously I had it set for the wrong thing because I was testing something earlier, but as you put in scores, it'll automatically calculate. If, say, you have a tie, it'll indicate that here. And the reason I said earlier that you want to assign tiebreaker points in such low increments is because if you were to put, say, like that, and you put a tiebreaker as 1 whole point here, oh, they fixed it. Well, last year, if you were to give them 1 whole point here, it would calculate their score as also being 51, and then you would suddenly have 2 ties here. I guess now it's fixed, but I would still recommend just doing it in smaller increments. What you can also do is you can import scores here. So if you're doing a build event and you have the spreadsheet that's already made out for you, you can do an export. This is already something that is built into the spreadsheet. Oh, by the way, these score sheets and this spreadsheet can be found on the Science Olympiad like official site. You can download them and whatever, and if the tournament doesn't provide them to you, you can download them yourselves and just do it this way. So what you can do is do this export. This whole thing, I guess. Where'd it go? Then you can import scores. What? Team number? Oh yeah. You need the headers of each of them, which is what I forgot here. So. Okay. And when you import the scores, it'll automatically do it for you. Oh. Yeah, the way I set it up, there's only there's only 3 teams. But say if you were to get rid of someone's score, you can choose on the status here, like if they no-showed, you can put down no-show either here or down here. And this will automatically bump them down to the bottom placement. CO means competed, that's the default setting. PO stands for participation only. This is in the event that they did come to compete, but for whatever reason, they're not in it for a ranking. This doesn't happen often, probably more so with build events than anything else. No-shows, obviously, they signed up, but they never showed up to the event. And DQ or disqualification, again, this is something that pretty rarely happens. It's if you're going to DQ someone, you should probably ask the arbitration team about it first, just because DQ is pretty serious, and it would only really come into effect if, say, someone was like hurting someone, or like egregiously like cheating or like tampering with something, stuff like that. Okay. And so like when you're done with that, or whenever you're done inputting scores for a block even, you want to save them, and it'll say on the bottom your scores are saved. When you're done with all of the scores, you can lock them and then set them to audit. This is the stage where you will come to the score masters to have them check your scores, verify them with the physical paper that you have or your score sheet or whatever, and then it'll get audited, it'll get finalized, and then you'll have your final rankings. Okay, I think, oh yeah, you can also set like how, based on like how your event runs, whether you want it high score or low score wins. And then, oh yeah, so the way I will personally have you guys do score counseling at USC is I will ask you to put your physical papers into rank order, so first place on top, last place on bottom, and then I will have you go through all the papers, read me the school name or the school number and their score, and I will go down my list by rank order and verify that is all the same on my end. So that's a little bit more about how score counseling works. Okay. Okay, test writing. This is the last that I have. Also, these slides were provided by the OCDE, and also, sorry, I didn't have time to make them look pretty, so here you go. Okay. So, test writing. You want to structure your tests in a way that can evaluate their knowledge, but it has a difficulty that will stratify the scores, which basically means that the people that know their stuff end up on top, the people that don't know anything will be on bottom, and the people are in between. They should be written within the boundaries of your event. So these event rules are really important. I know they're really long, but you're going to be referencing them basically the whole time that you are writing a test. So I write a lot for disease detectives. I always have this open on the side when I'm writing a test, just because I want to make sure that I'm staying within the rules. And you also want to make sure that you're not pulling too much from the same topic. So you want to have like an even spread of all the topics that are covered within the rules. You don't want to end up having, say, like 5 questions on herd immunity here, and then have like 0 questions on Radford Hill criteria. In the rules, it'll also sometimes note like how long a test should be, either time-wise or length-wise. Most of them don't specify like a length of a test. It'll just say like, oh, students have like 50 minutes to complete this test, which is the standard pretty much for all of the events. Your rules will also tell you like if it's not purely just a test, what materials are allowed. So build events, what type of materials they're allowed to build with, and what equipment they're allowed to bring the day of the event. And your rules will also tell you how a test should be scored. So like if you saw in duosmium, there was an option of highest or high score wins or low score wins. I believe some build events are scored in a way where the lowest score wins, which is why you want to be careful of seeing how your test is scored, because you don't want to accidentally give the lowest ranking team first place medal, because that's not fair to the actual first place people. You also want to make sure that it's a correct difficulty for the division that you're doing. So you want to make it hard enough where you can separate scores from people, like I said, but you don't want it to be like, you also don't want it to be super easy where like you want everyone to ace it. It's not like high school where it's like your teacher's like, I expect everyone to get an A on this. As mean as that sounds, that's not the goal of a Science Olympiad test. The goal is to have like an actual distribution, maybe much like a college class, unfortunately. Yeah. So, yeah. So you don't want anything that's too easy or too hard, because either you end up with everyone having super high scores or super low scores. So the test questions themselves, they should be able to assess the student's knowledge at multiple levels. These things here are a little bit more OC specific, just because they're trialing something with how they're writing tests. But I guess it's a good sentiment to learn how maybe things will be going in the future. So they have these things called selected questions, which are multiple choice questions. They're not the best at assessing someone's knowledge, just because they could guess and just get lucky. There's also these things called constructed response questions, or free response. These are allowing you to assess them at a deeper level. If any of you have heard of like Bloom's taxonomy or whatever, this is kind of like, the multiple levels of understanding or whatever it is. Rapid gradability, sorry. This is what I was saying a lot earlier, where you want this test to be graded as easily as possible. And I know that's hard because you usually want a test to have free response questions, which require someone to like parse through their answers and like think about it and make sure that it's all correct. But I would say like be as clear as possible with the answers as you can. So hang on. I can't be leaking all the tests that I wrote, so where's So like this is still the test that already happened, don't worry. So like when I write my answer keys, I always make it so that you can clearly tell what they need to earn points with. So like for this question, they need to have this label and they need to define the time that correlates with this label. When I write the when I'm making the booklet, to be fully honest, I quite literally just white out the words and then they just what question is this? So that they look exactly the same when you put them side by side. And this just makes it easier for anyone grading to just have the answer key and the test questions and just be following it along as it go. But yeah, another thing that OCDE is kind of trialing with us for OC Regional is all the multiple choice questions will be graded by like a machine, like kind of like a Scantron, but a little bit different. So that's a little something that maybe is going to happen more in the future. And obviously you want to be able to write a test that can balance both like the difficulty and the gradability, which can be admittedly a little bit hard sometimes just because there's a lot of things that go into each event. Each event is quite different, and you really kind of need to know your stuff to write a good test. And with that, I think that's all I have. So if anyone has any questions, I'll stay on for another 10 or so minutes maybe. But other than that, thanks for coming, you guys. I hope that you guys found it useful a little bit at least. And hopefully maybe I'll see you guys at USC Invitational. Come say hi. If you want to contact me personally, or I mean, not quite personally, but you can email us at scioli@uci.edu. I'll be checking that email consistently. You can also follow us at Science Olympiad UCI. We'll have a few updates there periodically as well. But yeah, that's... Oops. Thanks for coming.